My name's Dave Hadfield. I'm a pilot for the Mike Potter Aircraft Collection in association with Vintage Wings of Canada. We're based in Ottawa at the Gatineau Airport in halfway between Toronto and Montreal. Spitfire has some absolutely wonderful flying characteristics. The first is its low speed handling. And many of the fighters, if you get slow, 125, 130 miles an hour, and you pull a lot of G, like you load up the airplane, it can snap roll, it can depart from controlled flight, sometimes without much warning. Mustang's a little bit like that. The Spitfire, you can pull G at those low speeds as if you were in a turning dogfight or something like that. And instead, it starts to stall as a turbulent flow comes off the wing root, goes across the tail, and you feel it in the stick. You just unload the stick a little bit, and then you're flying again, and it has told you to be careful, told you you're coming up to the edge and tried its best to look after you. And that is a great thing. It's a safety factor and encourages sort of a team effort between you and the airplane. So what I'm going to do now is walk you through the airplane, do a walk-around inspection, a pre-flight inspection. It's a Spitfire Mark 9 with the correct Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, and I'm going to find the checklist here and follow me. So here we're going to do a walk-around inspection of a Mark 9 Spitfire, and I am the pilot, and you know, at air shows you get distracted, and I fly a number of different World War II and other vintage airplanes, so we use a checklist, and it helps keep your mind on what you're doing and prevent distractions. So a pre-external check, we make sure we have fuel and oil adequate for flight, and so those are done out here. We look in the fuel tanks, we look down through the caps, look on the dipstick, make sure we got enough. Then there's a number of switches that we make sure in a safe condition in the cockpit. There's a ground air switch down there which you won't be able to see, but we make sure that that's in flight mode. We make sure that a couple of emergency bottles down here, which again you can't see it, but 2 bottles down here are up to pressure for emergency blow down of the gear if we needed it. We make sure the undercarriage lever is down, that's good. The wing fuel, we got wing fuel tanks, long range tanks in this airplane. We make sure the switches that feed are turned to the off position. The flap lever is up here, this brass thing. It's got to be up, and it is. Magnetos, make sure the magnetos are pushed off. Off selection, they are. Fuel cutoff right down here, make sure it's, well actually that's the fuel tank, or the main fuel feed. The actual fuel cutoff to the carburetor is right here, and it's aft, and it is. Then we'll turn the battery master switch on. Now right now I've got the battery disconnected, so I won't do that for the purposes of this film. But normally, let's wait for the Harvards to go by. In Canada we call those Harvards, but you would know them as a T6. Anyway, normally I would turn the battery on and make sure the voltage is up to 24 volts. This has been converted to a 24 volt system. The alternating fail light is on. Fuel pressure warning light is on. And then we have an extra air pump in here to supplement the air what we need for brakes. A Spitfire doesn't have brakes on the toes, on the toes of the rudder pedals. It's got a lever here instead, like a bicycle grip lever, this one here. And when you squeeze that, there's pressure goes out. These 2 needles go out to indicate the pressure that you're putting to the left and the right brake. If the pedals are in the middle, you get even braking. If one pedal is displaced, you get asymmetric braking. So we would turn this switch on and make sure this supply pressure is up to what we need. Now, right now this airplane's parked with its tail into wind, so we've got a control lock on. This is a wonderful, original, superbly made Supermarine control lock, and that's because I don't want the controls flopping around in the wind. So I'm going to leave it there right now. But normally we would make sure the controls are free and correct. We would also cycle the trims. This is the elevator trim. You can see this needle moving if I move the elevator trim, and we'd cycle it all the way up and down. And then the rudder. Now the rudder trim, there's no gauge for the rudder trim, but usually if I'm sitting in the seat, I can reach up here to the mirror, tip it back, and look at the rudder, and I can watch the trim tab go back and forth. And then we finish off by turning the battery off so we don't kill it. And then we go do a walk around outside inspection. So when you're at a congested event like an air show, or if you haven't flown the airplane for a while, you're looking for anything that's un-airworthy about the aircraft. So we do a circular walk around. I'll start up here. We've already done a daily inspection of hydraulics. I've checked the fuel, make sure the cap is secure. I check all the Zeus fasteners on the cowl. They're all lined up. And that tells me that they're all engaged. I don't want them coming loose. And then, nothing loose here. We check to make sure. Now these are the radiator, we call them radiator boats, but they're the scoops or the cowls that enclose the radiators. I'm making sure nobody's throwing a Coke can up in there, or there's a bird's nest or something like that. That's clear. You come to the ailerons, I'll flex those and make sure that I don't see any cracks in the attachment fittings or on the castings. We get smooth, even movement. I check these tray covers. These are the ammunition covers. And I've got storage in there for various components. So I want to make sure that the Zeus fasteners are all secure and it's not going to pop off in flight. Same thing with the wing fuel gas tank lids. Make sure nobody's run into the corner of the airplane. Looks solid. I would take, of course, the pitot cover off, have a look. Now this is a kind of a unique tie-down system. Only the Spitfire has this that I've ever seen. And there's a U-shaped channel in there. So I would remove the ropes and then fasten with a screwdriver, fasten these two covers closed. At that point, I transition under the wing. And again, there are removable covers, and I make sure that they're all engaged. All the Zeus fasteners are in position. So that looks good. Around to the wheel well. There is an inspection panel here with a little hinged door. And I'm going to make sure that's secure, otherwise when the gear comes up it'll fracture that door. So that looks good. Then we look into this cooling bay, and that's a main engine coolant radiator, and that's an oil cooler. So I'm looking for leaks and other, trash and that sort of thing. Now the gear leg itself, there isn't that much to check. You're looking for obvious things: leaks, brakes, cuts. Look at the condition of the tire, the inflation. It should have a little bit of a bulge, but not too much. These are inflated to 54 pounds normally. We want a little bit of space, a little bit of give showing on the oil leg. This is, 3 to 4 inches. That's about right. If it hasn't flown for a while, or if I have fresh load of gas, and I'm not sure of the source, I have a test tube, and I can press that into the, there's 5 different fittings for the 5 different fuel tanks we've installed on this, and I can take a sample of fuel from the bottom each of those tanks, make sure I haven't got any water or condensation in my fuel, because you only discover that right after takeoff. Not so good. Anyway, same thing. We're looking for evidence of leaks. There's a little bit of oil on the belly here, but that's coming out of these drain masts, and so there's various places on the engines where it's normal to have some drips, and they collect and go under the wing there. This flew yesterday, and that's entirely normal amount of oil on the bottom. All right, then we'll come up to the side of the engine cowl here. I will already have checked the oil, but since it's handy here, I'll just show you how that works. And can't go flying without a Swiss Army knife, right? So I'll unscrew this. There is a way to do it. So that's the main oil facility down there. And I should have oil right down to this slight a separation in the spring, and I do. Right now we have it serviced with the summertime 120W oil, detergent oil, good thick summer stuff. These Zeus fasteners go in, move, and remain recessed, and that's how you can tell whether they're engaged or not engaged. Then we make sure the exhaust stacks, they should all ring with a clear tone, indicating they're not loose. And we again look at all the Zeus fasteners or the cowl to make sure nothing's coming off. A Merlin runs pretty smooth, but some of the antique engines vibrate a lot, so you gotta watch this. That's all good. Carburetor intake is clear. No bird's nest, no potato chip bags. Look at all 4 prop tips. Make sure nobody's driven into one of them. That looks good. Spinner tight. Same thing on this side. Zeus fasteners. Good. And then a repeat of this particular radiator has the main coolant on one side, and then the smaller one is the intercooler, which is in the supercharging system to reduce the temperature and increase the density of the charge. So I'm looking to make sure there's no leaks or trash. Tire looks good. The oleo looks good. Then up in here again, same thing with that one access door. Contact switches, all in good shape. All right. And again, I would take a fuel sample if that was required at these 2 drains here and here. While I'm under here, I'll check these other panels. Make sure all those Zeus fasteners are lined up. Nobody's bopped this World War II antenna. This is for IFF, Internet Identification of Friend or Foe. It doesn't serve any pitot or instrument function. It's not in use at the moment. Top of the wing, same thing. These panels, make sure the Zeus fasteners are attached. Make sure the gas cap lids are in place. Remove the ropes, close up the holes. You know, Spitfire wingtips are really, really slim. This has yellow paint, but if you come at it from this side, you're driving a golf cart, and you don't have some barrier like this, it's very easy to drive something. It's right at eyeball level when you're sitting in a golf cart, and it's really easy to drive into one of these. So you want to protect the perimeter of the airplane in a Spitfire. Same as before with the ailerons. Have a look at the flaps. They're closed right now because I need electricity to control the flap pneumatic pressure to open them. But anyway, something else to look at. The condition of these Zeus fasteners for cowlings, antennas. We have a maintenance access bay here for things in the aft fuselage. It's closed, it's tight. I look at the bottom of the horizontal stabilizer in the elevator. The elevator is fabric for lightness and easy repair of battle damage, that sort of thing. And make sure it hasn't picked up a stone from the propeller and has a head-up hole put on it in the last flight leg. That's good. Give the airplane a shake while I look at the tail strut and the tire. Nothing's going click, click, click or anything. That's a normal amount of movement. Tire inflation looks good. Hinge points, these are castings, looking for cracks. Looking in there. I would flex this if the control lock wasn't on. Trim tabs, that's normal. Same thing with the rudder hinges. Hinge points, trim tab, secure, not too much play. Nobody's broken a light. The rudder on a Spitfire is controlled by a push rod on one side. There's one bolt goes through there. It's got to have a nut. Well, it's got to have a fitting and then a cotter pin through it. Because if that came out, you'd have no directional control. You just have some inherent stability, and that's it. Condition of this is good. Castings, hinge points, and then, excuse me, John, I'll just slide behind you. Oh, yeah. And again, up here, a couple of things to check in the forward, the fuselage bay. Yeah, there's a Mustang starting behind us. I hope we don't get blasted here. Two of them. So in here, we have a good look. First of all, we connect the battery, and this is a quick disconnect. This is a wonderful modern feature for 28 volt or 24 volt batteries. You know, you can disconnect it very quickly. That's a great thing, and therefore ensure that there's just no juice coming out of the battery while you're parked overnight. And we make sure that the landing gear blowdown bottle pressure is up to 800, which it is. Then I look in the fuselage itself to make sure there's not a pair of sunglasses or somebody's wallet or coins or you know, helmet, radio, intercom leads or anything sitting on the bottom of the airplane or draped across control wires. Just a general condition. This airplane's been retrofitted with a duffel bag here, and I've got engine oil and tow bar adapter and a few things like that in there. The first aid kit right here. That all looks good. And it's really, it saves embarrassment if you do this at this point rather than leave it open and try and fly away with it. Guess how I know that. All right, then we're back where we started. At this point, I would coordinate the start procedure with the ground crew. Are we going to have chocks in, chocks out? Are we going to have a ground power unit? Although this one starts pretty well, doesn't really need it. And do I have a fire bottle on hand in case I get a carburetor fire during start? Going to work out the start procedure, where I'm going to go. A Spitfire overheats very quickly on the ground. It's great in the air, but on the ground there's not much air comes through those two radiators, so you want to have a taxi plan figured out before you turn the prop. You've only got about 10 minutes on a summer day. So, you know, a Mustang or even a P40, you can, or the radial engine airplanes, you can go a lot longer. So when that's done, I put on my helmet, I pull the parachute, I stand in the wing, pull the parachute on, make sure my straps are all clear of all the other straps, and hop in the seat, get ready to start.